John is our founding member of the Wild Bird Club. That means he was here from the very beginning. He's also a geographer. He has been birding since 1996 and still has a lot to see and learn. And today he will tell you more about what to do when you find a little bird by the side of the sidewalk. So here to talk about how to rescue birds and what to do about them is none other than a founding member of the club, Jon Villasper.
Thank you, Gina. Let me just share my screen. All right. Let's see. Okay, so rescuing birds, no? We get a lot of inquiries about what to do about birds when people find them uh, around. So let's talk about it. So, okay, let's have some important ano muna, no? Notes. So, please be reminded that it's illegal to trap, shoot, kill, purchase, sell, keep wild birds and other wildlife as per the Wildlife Act of uh, this recent Wildlife Act. So that given that, uh, we have to keep in mind that if we see something, if we see a bird lying on the ground, needs rescuing, we're not supposed to keep that for ourselves. So let's move on. So other important notes, not all birds need rescuing. Um, we saw this happening during the time that there was this show, Matanglawin, on Channel 2. It's the theme was about birds or bird people. And people became very aware of birds that any bird that they see, they bring to the rescue center. And that's a big problem because a lot of those birds didn't need rescuing. They were bringing owls that they found on the ground. And uh, the problem is those owls are actually living on the ground. So that's, I guess you see that problem. No? And then on other thing, if everybody brings a bird to the rescue center gets overloaded. They would not be able to attend to birds that are truly in need of care. Parang ngayon, like now that we have this epidemic, all the hospitals are overloaded and they cannot function properly. So ganun yung problema. So not all birds need rescuing. We need to think about that. No, you have to assess. Birds at different stages of growth may require different strategies. So if it's a hatchling, if it's a full-grown bird, those two will have a different method of handling. Different species may require different handling strategies. Uh, handling a maya is different from handling an ostrich. So, yung gano'n. Now, also, birds can carry or transmit diseases. If you remember, we had the bird flu a few years ago, and the bird flu is still here. I mean, it's still going around. So we have to be very careful about just picking up birds or something like that because they may be sick. Birds can hurt you big time. Like that ostrich, although swerte lang ng mga tao na they were not hurt by the ostrich, but big birds like that, or even small birds like the brown shrike, can hurt you big time. The brown shrike is that small bird. Um, in Tagalog, it's called tarat. It's one of the most painful bites that I've ever experienced. And then, of course, it's always better to keep birds in the wild, not your home, not the rescue center. It's better to be in the wild. So, do not attempt to handle birds if you are not trained to or comfortable in doing so. Do not attempt to care for birds if you're not trained to do so for extended periods. And do not take birds home. So,
Required.
Daw.
So yun, do not take the birds home. No? All right. So bird stages. Ito yung growth stages ng mga birds. No? It's good to be familiar about the stages of bird growth. So number one, you have your hatchling. You will hear these words every now and then, especially if you're rescuing. So there will be hatchlings. Ito yung mga wala pang balahibo. They look like aliens basically. So that's your hatchling. Next is your nestling. So they start to have feathers, pero the feathers are not flight feathers. They are just uh, yung tube-like na growth on their body. So right, hold on, huh? Anyway, so nestlings, uh, that's how it looks like. Sometimes their eyes are open, huh? And one thing that you need to that you would notice is the yellow gape. Yun dito sa bibig nila. That's normally a bright yellow. That's where that's how or well, that's an indicator for the parents to feed them pag nagbukas sila ng bibig. So they are unable to feed themselves. Now also there is what you call a fledgling. These are already feathered, and some may have down. And down is the cotton-like feathers, no? Anyway, some of them may be able to fly a bit, but they still rely on their parents for food. So normally magkaiba yung tsura ng fledgling sa parents. And you would know that it's a fledgling because normally the feathers are still fluffy. And then there's immature. They're adult sized, but they don't have the adult plumage. So just like this one is a glossy starling. The adult version of a glossy starling is all black. Wala yung mga barrings dun sa dibdib niya na black and white. Ang adult niyan is all black and red eyes. So even though they are of the same size, you know that it's immature. And then of course, adults. Now adults can fly away, of course. They can fend for themselves. They can build nests. They can reproduce. And obviously, if they're adults, they also take care of nests. So, ano yung general guide natin for rescuing birds? This is quite repetitive, ano? Kasi there's basically just one way of well, parang kinontra ko sarili ko doon. So anyway, hatchlings and nestlings. So if you encounter hatchlings and nestlings, number one, do not bring it home. Return it to the nest. Always return it to the nest. Bakit natin nire-return sa nest? Kasi we're not qualified. As humans, we're not qualified to take care of them. We don't have the skills. We don't know what they're going to eat or what they can eat. Just return it to the nest. Now, if the nest is on the ground, kunyari, nalaglag yung nest, and you don't, most probably also don't know where it was located before, just put it on a branch away from cats and dogs, and preferably away from humans as well. Excuse me. Now, if there are no nests, and you cannot see the nest, make a temporary nest with dry grass and place on a branch away from cats and dogs. Uh, Pwede ring box, pero most preferably, uh, it should look like a nest. If you don't know how the nest looks like, a general generic nest would be good enough. Now, if there are no nests, no parents around, uh, contact the nearest rescue center or vet. Now, I say contact kasi meron pa tayong epidemic, we're not supposed to go around. No? But if you can bring them to the vet. Pero if you don't know how to handle the bird, might as well just contact a rescue center or a vet. And they will advise you on how to handle the bird properly so that they can be brought to the clinic or the rescue center. Now, fledglings, if it's not in danger, leave them alone. And I have to stress this again, leave them alone. They may look lost, they may look like they don't belong anywhere, but they're just there. They probably live around the area, so just leave them alone if they're not in danger. Now, when we say in danger, that means merong cats, merong dogs, merong mga batang mitirador, or maraming tao. So, but if, or may ahas, siguro. Kung wala naman danger, leave them alone. If in danger, shoo them to a safer place and leave them alone. Again, nandun yung leave them alone. Shoo them away. As much as possible, we want to shoo them away. We don't want to handle the bird. So if the only time we handle the birds is if they cannot be shooed away. Ayaw kanyang pansinin, ganon. So what you do is you catch them quickly and gently and then place them in a higher or safer place. As much as possible in the same area, in the same tree, or in the same branch or the next branch higher. Ganon lang dapat. If the bird is injured, this is the time that you actually catch them. No? Catch them and then place them in a cage or a box with holes and then cover it with cloth. Now, importante yung cover with cloth kasi what we want to do is prevent them from seeing the surroundings. Kasi the bird is already stressed by being lost or by being injured, and you want to reduce the stress. So, ang technique doon is you cover the cage. You keep them in a dark, well-ventilated place. And then afterwards, contact the rescue center. Now, if it's an immature or adult birds, if the bird can fly or evade threats, leave them alone. Again, and then I may leave them alone. We have this habit of picking them up. So, laging i-emphasize natin yung leave them alone. So, they can fend for themselves, leave them alone. If they're just hopping around, but they can evade they can run away from the cat, leave them alone. If they cannot evade threats, that means probably they are dazed, nahihilo, disoriented, or they are injured. And normally, pagka injured, makikita nyo yan. Bagsak ang isang paa or isang pakpak, ganon. So, if they are injured and you can catch them quickly and gently, do so and then put it in a cage or a box with holes and cover it with a cloth and then contact the rescue center. All right? So yun lang yun. If you can avoid handling the bird, avoid. If you have to catch, do it quickly and gently, and then put in a cage or a box with holes, and then contact the vet. Ganun lang siya kasimple. Do not try to as much as possible, not try to keep it with you for an extended period. Now, what if you encounter a trapped or an injured bird? So, if you see a trapped bird, number one, paalisin niyo yung mga tao. Minimize the people around. Kasi yung maraming tao, if people are around, the bird gets stressed. Stressed na siya doon sa fact na nakatali siya or may bali siguro siya. And then mas matatakot pa siya na maraming tao. So ask people to move away. And then second, cover the eyes or the head with a sack or a cloth and hold the bird securely. You cover the eyes or head kasi you want to reduce the stress. Yun din yung purpose nung cover mo ng cloth yung box natin. So cover the eyes and head or head with a sack or a cloth and then hold the bird securely. There's a proper way of holding birds, no? Kasi if you don't know how to hold birds, you might end up injuring the bird more. So while it's covered and held securely, release them from the trap. If there is minimal or no injury, place the bird in a safe location and release. Lilipad na siya. Normally, just give it about 30 minutes and then it will go away on its own. If it is injured, ganun ulit, place in a cage with a box or a box with holes and cover with a cloth and then contact the vet. Ganun lagi sa dulo, no? Only if it is injured. Now, lost birds. Note that birds may not necessarily be lost. There are birds all around us all the time. We just don't notice. Dito sa bahay ko, from time to time, I get surprised na nakakita ako ng unusual birds. So, although I'm in a built-up area in the city, I get to see unusual birds. There was one time na tumingala lang ako and then I saw egrets. No. Sorry. Hindi po. Ano yan? So identify the birds. Sorry about this. Sandali lang ha. Okay, so identify the bird. If you're unable to identify, take a picture and ask the bird club for identification. Bakit natin gustong i-identify? The reason for that is we want to know what kind of habitat it is found in. So, say for example, kaya ng grass owl, you might see it on the ground. You might see it in the grass, and iisipin natin na injured siya or lost siya, pero doon talaga siya nakatira sa damuhan. It's weird. It's an owl, but it's on the grass. But that's the reality. So that's why we need to identify the bird. Now, can it fly away? If it's not in the usual habitat, then that means it's lost, no? Probably. Sorry. So leave it alone if it can fly, or if not, standard procedure. Now, handling the birds. Again, kung hindi kayo marunong mag-handle ng birds, call an expert on doing, somebody who knows how to, para hindi may injure yung birds. Now, remember this, no? Ito yung ostrich nung recent lang. They did a very bad job of catching the bird and bringing it to the rescue center. Ano nangyari? Namatay. So, yun ang problema. Now, there are ways of handling birds. If it's a small bird, use a ringer's grip. Uh, yeah, that's a ringer script. The bird will be secure in that, and you can handle the bird. Pero if you don't know what you're handling, as much as possible, wag na lang din. Kasi there will be small birds that are really painful to to hold. Okay. So anyway, let's end here. That would be how you handle birds. Okay, and questions to follow later. Sorry, I ate up a lot of time.
Thank you, John. That was valuable information. People need to know what to do when they've seen birds that need rescuing and how to do it properly. And what's more important is that some birds really don't need to be rescued.